got it. Cool, let's just do it one more time.
Let's go.
Why? Because we love making movies!
It's hard work to go to that blank piece of paper and start from square one. Start from scratch every single solitary time. I want to make movies that people will watch them and that will make them want to make movies.
And I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about it. This is my time to do movies. Let me try one more time to make it a movie. Let me try one more time. And that was the movie.
It's like the suspense is a rubber band. And I'm just stretching it and stretching it and stretching and see how far it can stretch. As long as that rubber band can stretch, the longer the scene can hold, the more suspenseful it is. Right. So you want to just stretch it until the rubber band breaks.
Before I settle in on what I'm going to do, I'm contemplating a lot of different things. Oh, there's that book that I've always wanted to turn into a movie. Maybe I'd start reading that again and go over my old notes. I explore some different ideas, see what stage in the incubator that they are at any given time, especially when I'm looking for inspiration. It's almost a metaphor for falling in love. You date a lot of people and you flirt with a lot of people and everything's going great. But then you meet the right one. And once I realized that, this has grabbed me, and this is genuinely legit, and now I'm thinking about music choices for it, and trying to find different music choices for it, and web spinning about it, and maybe it gets me to actually start writing a little bit. And pretty shortly into that process, I'll probably end up writing something that's like, okay, I'm doing this now.
When I started it years ago, and started writing it years ago, I had a different storyline. And the reason I couldn't really finish it years ago was because that storyline was just too big. It just wasn't a movie. It could have been a 12-hour miniseries, but it wasn't a movie. And I remember thinking, what? I'm too big for movies, and so I put it away. And so when I came back to it and I really wanted to actually make it a movie, I realized what I would have to do is come up with a new story. I'd come up with all the characters, and I came up with the idea of the bastards themselves. And that's where I came up with the idea of the German soldier Friedrich Zoller, who had killed all these people and was a huge hero in Germany, and they make a movie about his life, and the bastard's job is to blow up the premiere of that movie.
After Jackie Brown, I put Kill Bill off to the side. And I started writing Inglourious Basterds, and that became this never-ending process because people thought I was going through writer's block. I was going through the opposite. I couldn't stop writing. Right. I'd have a 100-page script and no end in sight. So I was trying to keep taming it, and I couldn't. Great material, like that opening scene. I wrote that. That was the first thing I ever wrote. My idea at the time, because it was just so big and so unwieldy, was to do it as a miniseries. And that really was what I was planning on doing. And
you'd written a lot from that.
Yeah, I'd written a lot. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of writing, though, I'd have to be doing for like a 6-hour miniseries. Yeah. And I'm at like the day before the day almost, right, where I'm getting ready to start that hard work. And Luc Besson was in town. Then we went out to dinner, me and him and his producer partner. And I'm telling him about my big miniseries, Inglourious Basterds, that I'm gonna do. And the producer guy is just like, oh yeah, Luc, that sounds awesome. That's the way to do it, Quentin. That's the way to do it. And Luc's like, yeah, I don't know. This is French. Well, what? What's the matter? I don't know. I mean, you are one of the few filmmakers left out there that makes me want to leave my house and go to a cinema and sit in the cinema and watch it on the screen. Anybody else, I'll watch the DVD. I can see it on TV. It'd be fine. I'm good. But more, you make me want to leave the house and go see cinema. And now you tell me I'm going to have to wait 4 years, 5 years before I can do that again? I'm sorry. I'm not so excited.
Oh, funny.
And every once in a while, somebody tells you something, somebody says something to you that you can never unhear.
Right.
And once he said that, I couldn't unhear it. And I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about it, and I kept thinking about it. This is my time to do movies. Let me try one more time to make it a movie. don't just throw up my hands and say I give up and make this incredibly sprawling epic. Let me try one more time. And that was the movie.
Now, the thing about it is, if one wants to think of this movie as a fairy tale or a fantasia, you're welcome to. Feel free. That's not really exactly where I'm coming from on it. Where I'm coming from is this. In the course of my story, my characters change the course of the war. Now, that didn't happen because my characters didn't exist. But if they had have existed, everything that happens is fairly plausible.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
If there had been a Frederick Zoller who did what he did at that time in the war, I'm sure Goebbels would have made a movie about him, the way America made a movie about Audie Murphy. And if Frederick Zoller looked like Daniel Bruhl and was as charming, then he could have been cast as the lead, and then they could very well have had a big premiere, and so on and so on and so on.
Colonel Hans Landa, played by Christoph Waltz, and his nickname that the Jews have given him in France is the Jew Hunter.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the acting in a minute. How did you create the character? What was it based on, or was that simply out of your mind?
It's, he just flowed out of me. I mean, I really can't really tell you, well, I did this or I did that. I think the first scene that I wrote in the movie was the opening scene. I always have to kind of write in order. The opening scene in the film where he's interrogating the French farmer at the film.
But then you believe then that character is fully formed in your mind, because the dialogue that takes place, the mannerisms that take place, continue through the film in every encounter he has.
He's not really fully formed. I mean, they grow. They teach me who they are. Like, to give you an example, one of the things about his character that's one of the most striking things is that he's obviously a linguistic genius. Well, I didn't know that when I wrote that first scene. I knew he could speak French, but I didn't know that he was such a linguistic genius until he just kept being able to speak one language after another.
Then did you have to find an actor who could do that?
Oh, yeah. That was the thing. That was the big deal. I mean, one of the things, when I finished that script, I knew that Colonel Landa was one of the greatest characters I've ever written and one of the greatest characters I will ever write.
First of all, he's larger than life in some way, or he has mannerisms that are defining, or he has a style.
Well, I guess it's more.
He has a look. He has.
Well, I think it's, I mean, I've been doing this for like 17 years now, so I do have a little rogues gallery of characters that are like my characters, and he was just one of the strongest that had ever come out. And then maybe in some way he revealed himself more to me as far as like I really let the character live. So I discovered him as I was writing him.
What's interesting about him is that he does everything with drama.
Yeah.
Every set piece is a dramatic piece. Whether it is because he discovered a shoe at a scene of a massacre, and he knows where to go find the person who the shoe belongs to, rather than just saying, is this your shoe? As an elaborate ritual.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing is, everything Landa does, he is a detective. That's first and foremost where he's coming from. He's a detective. And everything he does, his scenes are basically almost all interrogation scenes.
At a moment, he says that it's somewhere in the film.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. And every scene he does is some version of an interrogation, and every piece of interrogation is a piece of theater or a mind game with the participant. I'll just give you an example. And there was also, it helps describe how me and Christoph worked on the film. Just to give you an idea, in the script, in the opening scene, when he's interrogating this French farmer, the French farmer takes out a pipe and starts smoking it. And at some point, Landa says, hey, can I take out my pipe? And he goes, yes. And he pulls out this big giant calabash, which is the pipe that Sherlock Holmes smokes. And it's a very funny moment when it happens.
And he drinks milk.
Yeah, and he drinks the farmer's, he's a dairy farmer, so he drinks his milk as opposed to wine. But he has this pipe. And so I wrote that in the script, and then I actually had a couple of more moments where I had Landa take out the pipe and smoke and think. And so it was Landa's pipe. But I started thinking about it more and more as pre-production was going on, and I had dinner with Christoph, and I asked him, I go, let me ask you a question. In the script, it implies that this is definitely Landa's pipe, and he uses it to think. But let me ask you a question. What if Landa doesn't smoke a pipe? He knows the farmer smokes a pipe. And so at a certain point, he brings out this pipe. And what pipe does he bring out? He brings out the Sherlock Holmes pipe. One, you can say it's a sexual thing because my pipe is bigger than yours. All right. And the other thing, you can say, I know you're lying and I got you. I've got the Sherlock Holmes pipe. So maybe he doesn't smoke a pipe at all. It's simply just an interrogation technique to throw the farmer, send him more to hell. And so what do you think, Christoph? He goes, oh, he doesn't smoke a pipe at all. It is simply an act of theater. And Shoshana in the film is a Jewish woman, a Jewish young girl, who saw her family massacred by the Nazis, and she's been hiding in Paris. And the thing is, with Shoshana, years ago, when I wrote the character, I had her much, much more of like being a real badass. And she was killing Nazis, and she had a list of officers. She was like a real Joan of Arc of the Jews. And, she'd snipe Nazis from the rooftops of Paris and all this kind of stuff.
I like this.
And it was a lot of fun. All right. And I wrote these really great action sequences for Shoshana, and that was the deal.
So why didn't we use them?
Well, because I put it away and I did Kill Bill. And almost everything that I liked about Shoshana, I gave to the bride. And so the bride did all that stuff, and the bride's the one with a list, and the bride's the one going down the list and kicking butt. So when I come back to it after Kill Bill, I go, well, I can't do this again. But what I liked about that aspect was it actually enabled me to make Shoshana more realistic, as opposed to being this tough Joan of Arc girl. She's a survivor. Mm-hmm. She's a survivor. It actually made her much more like Jackie Brown than the bride, because I think Shoshana's strength is keeping it together in tight situations where anyone else would crumble, when anyone else would melt. She manages to keep her poise.
What do you call it when you create a backstory for an actor?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you create a backstory for an actor.
Right.
And for the character. I mean, that's one of my things. Whether or not the audience knows about it, I know about the character's past, and I just want the actors to know. Now, the audience doesn't need to know. Like, for instance, Brad Pitt's character, Aldo Rain, has a rope burn
exactly
around his neck. But I never wanted to explain how it happened.
I desperately wanted to know.
Well, I want you to just figure it out, all right? I mean, it's up to you to supply where that rope burn came from.
I mean, I would love to have had a little bit of a conversation that he would have referred to that.
Yeah, if I wanted you to know, I would have told you. I like the idea
But your idea of cinema, then, is to keep a lot of stuff in. You want mystery in the film itself.
It's like
you want us not to know everything.
Well, I like the idea. I like the idea that if you contemplate why there is a rope burn there, and somebody else contemplates why there is a rope burn there, and somebody else contemplates it, and three different people come up with three different reasons why he got a rope burn, those are three different movies you all saw. And I like that idea. I like the idea that you open up the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, and I don't tell you what's in there, but it's up to you to figure out what's in there, and now that's your movie. And you'll make that decision somewhere down the line. Now, if I tell you at this table what it is, then you'll throw that away, and I don't want you to throw away. That's your movie. That's a scene that's built around both dialogue, but dialogue as a mechanism for suspense. And I remember after I came out with Pulp Fiction, so I had 2 movies by that time, some critic said something to the effect of, Tarantino will never be a master of suspense because he's too far in love with minutia. And I actually thought that was a fair enough criticism back then. So now I want to actually do a movie where I actually indulge in suspense, and I go for it. And my method of it, and use that scene and the opening scene of the movie as an example, it's like there's the scene above ground and the scene below ground. And the scene above ground is what's going on and the dialogue and them sitting around this table and talking. Underneath it, it's like the suspense is a rubber band. And I'm just stretching it and stretching it and stretching and see how far it can stretch. Now, normally in a situation when you do a movie, you try to make your scenes as compact as possible so there's not air and you don't wear out your welcome with the audience. But under this method, as long as that rubber band can stretch, the longer the scene can hold, the more suspenseful it is. That scene is more suspenseful at 22 minutes than would be at 8. Right. So you want to just stretch it until the rubber band breaks. When it's working, it's a lot easier because it's working. It's you're inspired. Character A says this, then character B says that, and character C says that, and all of a sudden, and character C just told you something you didn't know. And now you have to work from that. Of either the characters in the scene have to work from that new information, but now you're also having to work from that new information. Now, I can tend to go long when I do that.
And so I have to be really aware of like, okay, is this holding up? Can this be this long? You know, and I mean, hands down, there's no example to the extent that the basement sequence.
Right, the opening scene.
Yeah, well, not the opening scene.
I'm sorry.
The opening scene held. I never had a question.
Okay.
It might be too long for other people, but it definitely wasn't too long for me.
The basement scene.
But the basement scene in Inglourious Basterds, deep in the movie.
Yes.
I mean, deep in the fucking movie, and there's no Aldo, there's no Shoshana, there's nobody you know. A bunch of motherfuckers you just met. Right. And now all of a sudden they're in a 40-minute scene. That's supposed to be suspenseful.
It absolutely is.
In a different language for an American movie. And, you know, it was never my intention for that to be that long. I just started writing it, and it kept holding. It kept holding, they kept talking, I kept keeping the reality of the situation, of they could be exposed at any moment. I'd almost exposed them, that it seemed like they got away with it, then something else would happen. And the thing is, if you think it's long when you look at it, imagine when I'm writing it. Because I guarantee you it's longer in my script version, all right, after I got through editing it, all right, it's actually longer. But not only is it longer, I'm writing it by hand, so every 2 pages every 2 handwritten pages is one script writing page. So the stack is getting crazy high. And my page number is not 40 pages, it's 80 pages in handwritten script. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. And then I'd go over it again and like, I like it. I think it holds, you know. And dare I say, I think it makes it more suspenseful. I think the longer I can stretch this rubber band out and actually feel that there's more rubber there to give, the more suspenseful it will be. Now, once the script's finished and I put it all together, then I'm not really worried about it anymore. I figure it's worked. But when I'm writing it and it's getting to be that much, and like I said, never seems like 40 to me. It seems like 80 pages to me. But I trust myself.
Why do you write in longhand?
I can't write poetry on a computer, mate. You know.
Yes, I can definitely always surprise myself. In fact, if I don't surprise myself, then that's kind of the time to hang it up. And one of the reasons I'm kind of able to do that is it's not like I have to kind of write for a living. It's not like I'm a professional screenwriter. There always is this aspect that I'm having to remember how it is I do what I do. It always just has to start little by little coming back to me. Oh yeah, that's how I do it. Oh yeah, that's the process. And I think that's the thing that keeps it fresh, because everything is always square one. Every single solitary time I start a new thing.
Good. Cool, let's just do it one more time.
Let's go.
Why? Because we love making movies.
Well, we'll look, just for instance, one of the most talented filmmakers of, my generation is David Fincher.
Right.
All right. But he's not in the same category as me because I'm a writer-director, and that makes it different. That makes it a different thing. And I think one of the things is it's hard work to go to that blank piece of paper and start from square one. Start from scratch every single solitary time. You are at the bottom of Mount Everest every single solitary time, and everything you've done before not only does not help you, it could even hang over your head. And that is a tough road to hoe, and you make less movies that way. And it's a lot easier to go and look at the scripts that are out there and available, and you can maybe work with a writer or do a little rewrite or do that kind of thing, and you get more movies made. But, cut to 6 years down the line, and where's that voice? It's gone away. And I'm proud of the fact that, with the exception of Jackie, I mean, I love Jackie Brown, but I don't really have any intention of doing any more novel things. Never say never, but I don't.
No, nobody. You're not going to adopt anybody else's novel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see that happening right now. Because to me, the glory in what I do is the fact that it starts with a blank piece of paper. You look at something like Inglourious Basterds, and that did not, if my mother never met my father, that would not exist in any way, shape, or form. If my mother hadn't met my father, there would be no Inglourious Basterds in any way. It started off with a pen and a piece of paper, and now I have a movie.
Say, if you weren't born, there would be no Inglourious Basterds, because only you could